In this session, as we've mentioned already, we're going to see what's new in RAD Studio 11.3 Alexandria. It was a new version that was released a few weeks ago, but it brought quite a lot of quality fixes and actually quite a nice handful of new features. So we're going to go through them. We're going to first talk about all the new features that came in 11 series, just in case you're not up to date. So yeah, but first let's talk about me a bit. I'm going to introduce myself a little bit. I'm a pre-sales consultant at Embarcadero Technologies. I've been a Delphi developer for more than 15 years, mainly developing ERPs, software solutions for businesses before I joined Embarcadero. But I've also been developing microservices using for Linux using Delphi, which is a topic that I usually find that people don't tend to use much. People are a bit stuck with VCL development, and they keep forgetting all the very cool stuff that you can do with RAD Studio. So developing microservices for Linux is something that definitely it's very rewarding and very, very trendy. On top of that, I've been also been working on full stack web development using tools like Laravel, Codesigner, Bootstrap, Vue, etc. And also I'm a massive Docker enthusiast. So if you like Docker, I like you. At the moment, learning a bit of Kubernetes as well. But yeah, pretty much Docker. Just to point out, we just released as well the Interbase Docker image, in case you're interested in this world. Interbase is the database that we offer in Embarcadero, and we finally managed to containerize it. So in case you want to play around with it, you have the image of the already uploaded to Docker Hub. And to talk about a bit about Embarcadero, well, we're part of the Idera group, which is great because we have plenty of different products that we can not only offer to our customers, but also to learn from other areas in the DevTools division. So we can identify trends, we can identify what customers want, and also do to implement those requirements in not only Embarcadero, but also in any of the other brands of the group. Companies like Sencha, which is also provided in RAD Studio Architect, which is great to develop web applications. We have API Layer, which is a great market where you can upload your APIs and monetize them, or if you want to consume through REST API, like, I don't know, stock market prices or weather, stuff like that. You can also use that to implement in your solutions. Yellowfin joined the group a few months ago, and it's a very, very cool business intelligence solution that we recently did an implementation with Delphi as well. So you can connect Delphi with Yellowfin, and I mean, plenty of other tools like Aquafold, which is a great tool for database management. And if you use an Interbase, it's definitely the one to check out, and also included in an architect. But as you can see, plenty of different solutions that you can that we can offer to all our developers. A quick introduction to what RAD Studio is. The ultimate IDE for building multi-platform applications. We need to remember that we can develop not only VCL, but we can also use FireMonkey to develop for iOS, Android, macOS, Windows, and Linux, all through very high performance, and really want to emphasize that they're native applications. So we're creating binaries that they're compiled and they're executed natively in the operating system, which is an incredible high performance boost compared to interpreted code like JavaScript or other alternatives. All this has been used through modern Object Pascal that we keep improving and adding new features. I really encourage you to check all the new features that we include in Pascal. You can read the Marco Cantu ebook, which is great to learn all about. I mean, they were included a while ago, but I keep emphasizing like generics and inline fireballs, all anonymous methods. All these are tools that I can see that not a lot of people use nowadays. They're stuck with old Pascal language, and I mean, it's great for productivity. And also we have obviously our own extended C++ language, but all this round up with a powerful visual design tool and integrated tool chains. This is great compared with other alternatives in the market because you can do absolutely everything within the IDE. You don't need multiple tools. You just need one tool chain, and you create your the product straight away. And what is great in RAD Studio? Well, developer speed for sure. As I mentioned, creating everything within the same IDE is just great. And we have statistics that prove that you can get to market even up to 5 times faster compared with other alternatives in the market. And that's money after all. So that's something that really needs to take into consideration. And also the fast native applications you create with RAD Studio, because again, they're natively compiled, and thanks to the compilers that we provide, they're extremely fast compared with other alternatives. You can compile millions of lines of code in just a few seconds instead of minutes, and that's again time that you save to do what you know what to do, which is coding. And the extremely broad API access we have to all the platforms, and you don't really need to think about if you're compiling for one platform or another. Let's take, for example, the camera component. I just want to activate the camera and use it. I don't want to be concerned if I'm on iOS or if I'm on Android. So all that is provided through the interfaces that we have to every single platform, and obviously updated on each release. And database access is extremely important as well, and we provide one of the best solutions through FireDAC. You can connect to nearly every database that you can think of, and that's all abstracted, and you can connect to multiple databases. And you can have on your backend MySQL, or you can have Interbase, or you can have Oracle, and just tweaking a few things, you can offer to your customers multiple databases. And the visual designer, it's just brilliant because we're one of the very few alternatives in the market that can still offer out-of-the-box UI prototyping within the IDE. You have, with other solutions, you have to use alternatives to create a UI, and you create mockups, and then you have to pass that to the UI developers. And with RAD Studio, you just prototype straight on the IDE, you create a UI, and if you go, you can keep developing from there without redoing all the work. And that we have to thank you as well, the strong community we have behind our products. Because we have plenty of technology partners, we have MVPs, trainers, book authors, and plenty of developers worldwide that make developing with RAD Studio a very, very good experience. And they provide amazing third-party components, and they create things that we would never think about. So it's very cool to see all those projects that the community creates. And backwards compatibility, which is one of my favorite ones, because this is something that you usually don't see in the market. We have customers that they keep their code for years and years and years, and they can still compile them just with a few tweaks, moving forward their code and modernizing it. And that's a serious investment in your code, because you keep your code relevant and you don't need to recode. That's something that is very common with other languages, that they make breaking changes that eventually imply recoding nearly a whole application, if not the whole of it. And that's again very, very valuable, because the investment you put in your code is going to be relevant for many, many years. And RAD Studio has been used nowadays in nearly every single business segment. talking with a lot of customers, and sometimes it even surprises me the places where RAD Studio has been used. I've seen it in audio production technologies, in television, in remote computing access, and one of my favorite ones, which is using Delphi or C++ to develop all the developer tools, which is super cool. So yeah, if you have an idea, 100% you're going to be able to develop your solution using RAD Studio. And as I mentioned, we're going to go through a quick summary of the new features that were included in the 11 Alexandria series. Has been a whole revamp of the IDE. We've put a lot of effort in making the IDE available for high DPI. So now we have crisp fonts in all windows and the editor. We have a high DPI enabled form designer as well. So what you see on the screen is going to be what your customers will see. And now it's also very cool because they have the form and code visible at once in different windows, which is something that a lot of people were requesting. We used to have this all undocked layout that you can have this floating windows. So in case you have multiple monitors, you can have, for example, the code in one monitor and the editor, the UI editor in another one, which makes productivity much faster. But now you can do that already with Windows, RAD Studio 11. We have also multiple active styles in VCL Designer. That's something also we got a lot of requests. If probably you know, we have styles, which are like you can theme your application in VCL. Now that can be already visualized in the IDE and the editor straight away. You don't need to compile your application to see the final result, which it boosts your productivity as well. We also have a new welcome page that now has been migrated from HTML to VCL components, which makes it much faster. And thanks to the ToolSAPI that we will see later, we're hoping that we're going to have a lot of new plugins and packages that they will help to customize the experience of the welcome page, or you can create your own ones if you want. Also, has been in a few IDE improvements. Now we have this tab state visualization, so you can see through different colors the type of unit or window that you have opened. For example, the ones that are non-code windows, like the welcome page or the deployment page, they're in different colors. And also, you can keep them open while debugging, and you can see which one has modified content, and one of my favorite ones, which is which units are in read-only mode. So you can see that little lock we see here in the screenshot. That's extremely handy because sometimes in the past it has been a nightmare for me. And now you can see straight away if a unit is read-only. And now the X close button is fully configurable as well. You can disable it completely, or you can make it available just on the active tab or on all the tabs. Markdown on HTML, probably one of my favorite features in 11 series is finally we have Markdown natively on RAD Studio. Now the IDE supports Markdown documents. If you don't know what Markdown is, we're going to see a demo in a second. It supports heading, links, images, code, bold, italic, blah, blah, blah. And also, if you still want to use markup HTML to create your documents, that's still possible. I really encourage you to move to Markdown because it's much faster. And you can create the README files or link the Markdown files to the project. This is very common. For example, if you having a collab with some other developers, or you upload the project to GitHub to find the readme.md files. So all that now is compatible with RAD Studio. So good news, no more Internet Explorer in the IDE, which is always great. And this is done through pure VCL implementation. So let's quickly see a demo about all these features that we've been talking about, I have here Delphi 11.3 open. We can see here the welcome page I was talking about. Now you can edit this layout and you can customize it in case you don't want one of these components. You can remove them or you can add them. So as I mentioned, in the future, you're going to be able to customize this even more with new extra plugins. So you can see that it updates automatically based on the layout you defined. If we access this project I have here for the demo of this webinar, we can see now that we have this README opened automatically. It's an Markdown file. We're seeing here the preview, but if we access to the code, now if you're familiar with a Markdown language, you can see here that we have the heading, we have the bold, italic, and then you can even define code. It's super simple, much faster than using HTML, and you can come here to the project page options and link that Markdown file straight away to the project, so it opens automatically. In case you're wondering how you can create a new Markdown file, it's as simple as coming to the project, a new, other, and here under this list, you have Markdown document, so you can create one straight away. We can see here the color of the tabs we were talking about before. And if I access a unit, and for example, I go to one of the RAD Studio libraries, we can see that log I was talking about before, which is super handy. So you know that you cannot edit that file anymore. And about the styling, in this case, we have here a standard Windows styling, but I have one activated, and if I want to change it, if I come here to style, I have a slate gray activated as well, so we can see how it will look straight away, changing it here within the UI editor. And you can even customize it to the level of components. So in case I want that to be a Windows style, there you go. You can see that right here. Delphi LSP has been quite a trip, but it's just great. LSP is a standardized protocol for code completion. So and related features like control clicking for navigation, any suggestions, etc. It's all been handled by Windows LSP. Windows LSP was implemented a few versions ago, and it was coexisting with the previous code completion system. But eventually, in the 11 series, has been migrated, and the old versions were scrapped. So we moved completely to what we call Delphi LSP, and it's a much modern approach because now we can even ship a Delphi LSP add-in for Visual Studio Code. And what is great about it? Because it has a great stability. It can handle big and giant projects much better because it uses way less memory. And one of my favorite features is that it's not running on the main thread of the operating system. Probably you know that the main thread is the one in charge of the UI of Windows as well. So when you use the main thread, the whole UI freezes, and that's probably we don't remember that, but that's what used to happen many versions of RAD Studio ago. Now this is multi-thread and it's running in the background, so it's constantly calculating all the previews and code completions and all that. So it's much faster and responsive, and you can do multiple things at once again, because you can now even use code insights while you're debugging, which wasn't possible before. We will talk about this later as well in the 11.3 because there have been a lot of quality improvements about Delphi LSP. More developer help. The return of XSLT. if you don't know what that is, it's something that we got a lot of requests from customers that they wanted back. It's pretty much creating extra help and customized help for your methods. We will see an example in a second. You can use HTML to create descriptions of your methods. That's very, very helpful, mostly in big projects, or if you have a big team that you need to document every method so people don't get lost through. Even though I'm a big fan of that, your method should be descriptive enough with the name. We know that sometimes that's not possible, so we need that extra description. And through this, you can customize all that. And another very cool feature is that we can see now which code is inactive in the editor based on the version of the platform, we're compiling for, or the compiler setting that we have defined. Let's see a quick example of this too in the same project I have here. So if I come here and I come to the code, we see here that I added a little summary to my method. So if I come here where I call the method and mouse over the method, I can see that description and also the parameters that are requested for this method. As I mentioned, this is very handy for big projects, or if you have a lot of units and you want to document everything. It makes the developer lives much easier. And we can see here an example of this code that is grayed out because it's not going to be compiled because we're on Windows 64. But if I change to Windows 32, it changes automatically and shows me that this is the code that is going to be compiled. Again, something is purely to help you out, but it's very helpful when you're coding maybe a bit of a complex project, because you can see straight away the code that is going to be compiled. Obviously, you can create your own compiler directives as well, and it works as and if you assign those directives to your build configuration, it will work as well. Has been other RAD Studio IDE enhancements, like for example, in the CPU disassembly view, now the syntax is highlighted, which makes it more readable. So you can find the values you're looking for in a much faster way and get it. It has been included a language filter. Now you can search specifically for Delphi or C++ libraries. And the message view at the bottom also has been improved now with colors. So we see the warnings in yellow, hints in blue, and errors in red, which it seems natural, but yeah, it used to be the same color. So it makes it much nicer now to track all those down. And now the compiler dialogs shows as well the platform and build configuration, which is also super handy. So now when we compiled a project, we can see here that the platform and also the build configuration. Previously, we had to, again, come to the right and check which one we were compiling for. In between 11.1 and 11.2 has been an extra release specifically for C++, which we called 11.5. And obviously, this has been rolled out as well for 11.3. It has been pretty much quality fixes. STL IO stream performance improved in 25%. Linker support, ASLR, DAP, NX, and TS-aware flags, but not for more than 4 gigabytes. And LLDB for C++ added remote debugging for Win64, which was also a big request. And Delphi target platforms and compiler changes. In 11.0, we added support for macOS ARM-based silicon, which is known as Apple Silicon. So if I'm sure that you've heard that Apple moved away from Intel processors. Now they're developing their own silicon. So now you can compile natively for macOS ARM-based operating systems. Obviously, you need an ARM-based macOS device to compile to that platform, but yeah, that was a big milestone for us because again, the code is native and you're compiling native applications for that operating system. In 11.2, we added iOS simulator support, which is also very, very handy. It's only compatible with all macOS computers. So in case you want to use the simulator to see how your FireMonkey applications will look, you need an ARM-based Mac. But this has been a game changer for a lot of developers, because before you needed to be an active developer and pay the fee for being an Apple developer. But now you can compile your FireMonkey application straight on the iOS simulator that's provided with Xcode. So you can preview how your application will look in all the devices, iPads, iPhones, etc., without the need of paying beforehand the Apple developer fee. And also in 11.2 was included the new API level 32. And the Wi-Fi reinforced security flags included in the 11 series, like address space layout randomization, data execution prevention, and high entropy address space layout randomization in Windows 64. All this were allowed in previous versions, even though they were probably marked as warnings, and now for security reasons and to comply all the platform's APIs, that has been reinforced. So you need to take into consideration, and maybe you need to tweak some of your code in case you're using any of these, because even though they were borderline legal in the past, now they can throw an error. So pay attention to these in case you're moving to the 11 series. Recent changes in the Delphi language. Well, we have managed records with automatic invocation of special operators, and inline variables offering an additional scope lifetime model and time inference. And smaller recent changes has been as well the binary literals that you can use now. You can see here in the little screenshot on the right. And the digit separator support, so you can write big numbers like this using the underscore. Obviously, all these will be ignored by the compiler, but it will make your life much easier when it comes to read big numbers in the code editor. And library improvements and runtime libraries. We have the TZIP file improvements, new classes created. You have the list there. And obviously performance optimizations. On the VCL side, we have a new rich edit implementation, which we call rich edit 4.1. That is more compliance with the modern Win API, so you can use a few extra features in the rich edit. Many enhancements for scaling and high DPI, because now you can use your applications will be aware if you have multi-monitors, if one monitor has one resolution, the other one has a different one. All that has been handled now by the application natively. We also created a Win UI 3 demo, which is a new Microsoft SDK for UIs. You can find that demo on Get in case you want to play around with this new concept that Microsoft released. And the TH browser and T-Web browser have had improvements as well. I want to point out that the T-Web browser now supports Chromium as well, which is luckily the new engine that Microsoft moved to. So now you don't need to use Internet Explorer anymore, and you can use from T-Web browser. You can be even aware if it has Edge installed or not to use one or the other. On FireMonkey, we have desktop and mobile improvements. Again, WebView 2, which uses Chromium, more high DPI improvements, and GPath data quality and performance. And on the data side, we had improvements on FireDAC, and now we have new database versions. And also, Refine has been improved for migrations from ADO and DBGO. And we have the FD monitor and SQL editor improvements as well. On RAD server, we created new endpoints for sysadmin. It's in case you want to use some admin login and stuff like that, you have on the doc wiki more details about this new endpoint. And we also included RAD Server Lite in the Alexandria series. And it's a very cool new feature that you can use a smaller version of RAD Server with interface embedded. You definitely need to check that out if you're interested in REST API development. And better HTTP support for MIME types and SSL certificates. Okay, so now that we recapped a bit of the whole Alexandria series, let's focus on 11.3, which has been mainly a quality-focused release with a handful of new features and some nice usability improvements. But yeah, we've got a lot of feedback on Quality Portal. We really wanted to focus on ironing out all the issues that were created along the 11 series. So we've fixed a lot of bugs and issues that you reported. But first, let's talk about the new features. We added new platforms, support for FireMonkey, because right after we released 11.2, Apple and Google, they both released new versions of the operating systems. So we now in 11.3 is fully compatible with iOS 16, but only on the Delphi side. At the moment, C++ is still on the works to make it compatible with iOS 16. So in case you're developing iOS with C++, you still need to target to iOS 15. Again, Android 13 support and macOS Ventura. And we included officially support to Ubuntu 22 and Windows Server 2022, even though these were already compatible, but we added official support to this. And in FireMonkey, we have a very cool new component that is to handle biometric authentication. It works only on mobile at the moment, but you can use it on Android and iOS. On iOS, it's for using Face ID, and on Android devices, fingerprint. And it's a very, very cool component because with just a few lines of code, you can do authentication and biometric authentication implementation, and it's so simple and very, very powerful. So in case you want to add that extra layer of security to your applications, definitely check it out. And on Android, we have better device integration with a new interface for film dialer listener service. That's exclusive for Android. And we also have a document file provider support. There has been some toolchain improvements as well. A new LLDB-based Delphi debugger for macOS, Intel, and Android 32 bits. We'll talk about LLDB in a second in more detail because all the non-Windows platforms have been migrated to LLDB. We have a new notarization process for macOS, which has been introduced by Apple in Xcode 14. And Windows sign-in support in the IDE includes the timestamping of MSIX files. On the C++ side, now you can use the auto suffix for libraries, which is very cool. That was available for Delphi, but now it supports C++ as well. So it's the compiler is aware of the version you're compiling the library for, so you don't need to be editing the files manually. That has been available for Delphi, as I mentioned, but now you can use that on C++ as well. About LLDB is now used for all known Windows platforms. This is the debugger that has been a lot of work been put into to migrate all the debuggers to use just LLDBs, all the non-Windows ones. In the past, we used to have multiple debuggers for each platform, which was a bit complicated to handle. So now finally, the migration has been finished and all of them use the same debugger, which is great. Probably you won't notice it, but this will help us in the future to not only find bugs and test them much faster because we just need to work with one debugger, but also implement new features that will be shipped to all the platforms at the same time. So this is very, very good news, not only for the present, but also for the future. A few handful of new features on the code editor. We have one I personally really like, which is highlight matching words. This has been available in other IDEs. Now it's also included in RAD Studio, which is pretty much you select a word and then you will see the rest of the same words highlighted in the unit. You can customize that, defining if you want it to only when you select the word or when you put the cursor on a word, automatically will select the rest. You can define that in the configuration settings. And we also changed the sync edit and the structure flow to high DPI icons. More smaller IDE changes. We don't ship anymore subversion DLLs. So we're now following the same pattern as Mercurial and Git. This is pretty much to standardize which DLLs we provide for source versioning control. Also, administrators wanted to provide their own DLLs, and also it's a way so we're sure that we're not shipping not discontinued, but all DLLs. So now you can keep those updated in a faster way. We locate the current building configuration output folder in Explorer by right-clicking a build configuration, which is also very handy. I'm going to quickly show it to you because I really like this feature. Before, you could access the project with a right-click and go to show in Explorer. But now you can do the same thing as well with the build. So if you want to see the binary of the debug you just compiled, you can go straight away to the folder. Now this, if you're compiling for VCL, that couldn't be a problem. But if you're compiling for multi-platform and you have release and debug in 4 or 5 different platforms, sometimes it could get a bit messy to go to the project folder. So now you can go straight away to the binary from project manager. If you open the IDE with elevated privileges, you're going to see in the title bar now that it will say administrator. This is quite important when it comes to security, because sometimes maybe you need to open the IDE as administrator, but then you will have this little tag top left. And now Markdown files can now be opened in multiple editor windows. And also you can tweak how faded the inactive code will be. You know, this feature we just seen based on compile directives. Well, you can tweak now how opaque that code will be. One of the biggest new features is the ToolsAPI, which we're very, very excited about. In the past, if you wanted to customize the UI of the editor, you had to use some hacks to access it. Now all this has been rebumped completely and created a whole new tool, what we call ToolsAPI, plenty of interfaces to access it, and insane amount of documentation as well, so you can create your own customizations. We're very, very excited about this new feature, even though it's not bringing a lot of new tools or help to your productivity. But we're very sure that the community is going to create amazing new customizations for the IDE, and also we hope that it will move away from those hacky ways of accessing the IDE, which could make it a bit unstable sometimes. Just as a very quick example of what can be accomplished, you can access the examples that come out of the box with 11.3. But let's go, for example, to the editor background. These components or packages, sorry, they're created as BPLs, and you install them from here. So you can create your own ones if you want to check the documentation and see the possibilities. They're very, very simple to create. It's just literally you intercept the code before it's been rendered on the editor, and then you can do whatever you want with it. In this case, this example, it creates a background for the IDE. So let's quickly install it. And there you go. Now we have a background in the editor. This is just a very simple example, but we can do a lot of crazy things. Like there's another demo that's very cool that reverses all the reserved words and create a yellow rectangle behind it. You can customize the color of the lines. You can do pretty much anything. And if you want to uninstall it, let's quickly install it, and off you go. We don't have the background anymore. So yeah, very excited about this new feature. And I'm sure in the future, we're going to have plenty of very helpful tools to integrate with IDE. You can find the demos on the demo folder provided with RAD Studio, or you can also find plenty of them on GitHub in case you're interested in this. But yeah, you can show gutter, text, background painting, and here you can see the example I was talking about with a reserved words. So if you want to play around with that, it's very, very cool. And also, because there have been this insane amount of new quality fixes in this 11.3, we're gonna go through all of them. So we're gonna go through the major quality fixes. On the C++ side, there has been a compiler, debugger, and general toolchain improvements, fixes in several areas, overall improvements. There are no big announcements for C++ in 11.3, but what I would encourage you to do in case you're developing with C++ is that you go to a blog because David Millington created a very, very interesting post about the future of C++ in RAD Studio. We've had a lot of feedback of people thinking that C++ was a bit left behind compared with Delphi, but that's really, really not the case. The thing is, the team is working really hard in something quite big, so it's difficult to keep the same pace of development with Delphi and C++ at the moment. So if you're interested in C++, definitely go and check that blog post and see what is coming, because we're very excited about it. And it's going to be very big. On the IDE, has been some quality improvements as well at the coding side and Delphi LSP improvements. We know that there were a few hiccups among 11.01 and 2. It has been put a massive effort on 11.3 to fix all these problems that we were having with code completion, help insights, navigation, etc. Now it's working much, much better. We're getting a lot of very positive feedback on 11.3. So if you're having issues with 11 series and you're not in 11.3, I really encourage you to upgrade, because it works much, 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 much better. The Delphi compiler now stores the XML docs in a compiled DCU, so the help inside has been showed much, much faster as well. There has been plenty of improvements to the high DPI IDE, in particular in the VCL form designer. And there has been also quality on the high DPI VCLs. Because it was such a big change as well, changing the whole IDE to high DPI, there were a few hiccups and places where maybe things weren't being shown correctly. So in 11.3, again, a lot of work on this side. And now we have better scaling on non-visual components, including in frames, and better high DPI support for frames in the designer. On VCL, we've had some quality improvements as well. A new feature, which is what we call the T-control list, is a new component that offers multiple selection via shift or control click. It's a very cool little component because it's virtualized, so you can create thousands and thousands of items in the component, and it's rendered super fast. So if you need this kind of lists and you need to create a lot of items, it's definitely something you need to look into because it works very well. Has been some quality related to VCL styles, better support for the styling of the background of the touch keyboard component that we can see here on the right. In the previous versions, we had some issues with the background that has been tackled. And many other improvements and fixes in the VCL style support, improved the style hook stability, and also in the hotkey and T-scroll bar now works better on high DPI. On the FireMonkey side, apps now properly handle terminate requests from Windows Restart Manager, and also better accessibility with deep web browser integration and improved support for multi-displays. iOS improvements as well in the scrolling with a few components. Android also improvements when moving the cursor in a T memo with finger slide. FireMonkey graphics improvements in the T-bitmap and T-canvas classes. And there are fixes for all many controls, including multi-view with platform control types, speed buttons, labels, etc., etc. And also one that I was really waiting for is now the clip children now takes X radius and Y radius into consideration. In case you don't know what this is, let's say, for example, you have a T rectangle with rounded corners using the properties X radius and Y radius. Because you can nest a lot of components inside components in FireMonkey. The problem is that those round corners, if you were using clip children, weren't applied correctly, but now everything looks great. And we have a better tab key cycling across user interface controls as well in FireMonkey. The runtime library and data quality, has been in the RTL and memory allocation performance improvements, some RTL performance improvements as well with move to directory get files method, an updated version of the CLib library. And on the database side on FireDAC, we have improvements for PostgreSQL database performance and now fully supports version 14 and 15.1. Other improvements for Oracle for better treatment of column names with the square brackets. And for Linux, the database layer offers preliminary support for UTF-8 in the database runtime library, like string fields, and in FireDAC's datasets. And now with 11.3, we ship as well Interbase 2020 update 4 that was released a while back, and also IB Lite and IB to Go edition updated. And on the website, improvements to multi-part content parser, automatic token refresh to TOAuth2 authenticator. So if you're using sign in with Facebook or Google or stuff like that, now it's handled much in a much better way. The token refresh, better support for nested elements in TREST response dataset adapter. So in case you're fetching data from an API and you are getting nested results and you wanted to convert those to mem table, for example, now it's we have new ways to handle those nested results and import them in mem tables. Also fixes in RAD server and SOAP and other related subsystems. And we also launched a newer version of the Apicept AWS SDK for Delphi. And that's not related with 11.3 as such, because we continuously release new versions for Get-It, but yeah. So in summary, RAD Studio 11.3 implements over 23 new features, requests from Quality Portal, fixes over 400 bugs reported by customers on this portal. So in summary, if you take into consideration all the quality fixes across the 11 series, we've nearly fixed 3,000 issues reported in Quality Portal. So if you're having any problem, or doesn't matter in which version you are, please go to Quality Portal, report it there. If you can, provide a little project with that we can reproduce the problem, because it's definitely the way to go. And also you can check if any other people are getting issues, so you can see possible solutions to your problems, and also in case you want to post or suggest a new feature. Also use Quality Portal. We're more than welcome to hear all these new features that you can suggest, or you can contact me or any of the PMs, and we're more than happy to jump on a call with you and talk about these new features. I also wanted to point out that we released a few days ago 11.3 patch 1, just to address a few key issues that were addressed after the release of 11.3. I'm not going to go through these in particular, but yeah, here you have the list of all the bugs that were addressed in this patch. If you haven't applied it yet, I would really encourage you to do so. If you haven't upgraded to 11.3 yet, then don't worry, because if you install 11.3, it will come with this patch already applied by default. But pretty much there were a few issues with the REST API request and response that were mainly the bigger problem. But yeah, definitely apply it if you haven't. And that's pretty much it. I thought you found this interesting. If you haven't upgraded to 11.3, please try. And if you have any questions, there you have my details. So just ping me and I will be more than happy to help you out.
Thank you, Antonio, for that excellent presentation. So let's see if we have some questions. David, did we get any questions?
Actually, yes, we did, and some really good questions, I must say. So I think we'll start right away. Antonio, okay. I have a MacBook Pro with an M1 one chip, but Windows virtual machines are only ARM compatible. Can I use Delphi on ARM Windows?
Yes, we're not officially supporting this yet, but I'm personally using an M1 MacBook Pro. But if you want to use Delphi, you definitely can install it, or Delphi RAD Studio. You can definitely install that on Windows ARM. It's compatible. I've used it as a daily driver, so it works. And it's very cool because you can use the iOS emulator straight away in the same machine using PA Server. The only problems you could have is if you use C++, because there are a few issues with how virtual machine maps the folders. And yeah, I want to specify that I have parallels. I've used UTM and also VMware, but Parallels is much better for virtualizing on Apple Silicon. And yeah, the only problems you could face it would be with some libraries in C++, but you can fix that changing the mapping of the folders. So yeah, definitely go for it.
Cool. I can mention that we have plenty of customers who use this configuration also, and no problems what I heard of, at least.
Yeah.
Second question. Currently, I have Alexandria 11.0 installed on my computer. Can 11.0 and 11.3 coexist?
No. If you have a previous major version, I mean, this is pretty much for all the versions. We used to have, which has been a bit of a confusion with customers. Our major versions used to be all with 10 point something. So we have 10.1, 10.2, 10.3. Those were major versions. And then we released extra versions like 10.4.2, for example. Now has changed with the launch of 11. So 11 is the major name of version, and then the patches or the minor releases are 11.1, 11.2. So the next version of RAD Studio, it will be 12. This being said, in the past, you couldn't have either, for example, 10.4.0 and 10.4.3 in the in the same machine. So same thing with 11. You can have two major versions coexisting in the same machine, like 10.4, 11.3, not a problem. But 11.0 and 11.3, they cannot be installed in the same machine.
Okay, thank you. I got it. I also have a question about Community Edition. For you who don't know what that is, it's a free version of Delphi or C++ Builder, which is mainly made for hobbyists. So the question is, when is Community Edition be updated to Alexandria?
I'm very happy that you asked me that, because it was updated yesterday. So literally yesterday, we launched the updated version of Community Edition. We was a bit behind based on 10.4.2, but now has been updated to 11.3. So if you want to play around with RAD Studio, it's a great opportunity, because now we have the same version between Community Edition and Professional Enterprise or Architect. So yeah, yesterday was a big day for us, because we eventually managed to update Community Edition to the latest version as well.
That's great news. I know a lot of people have been waiting for this version.
Yeah, I know.
I think we have time for one last question. I am on 11.0 and I have lots of third-party components installed. Well, a lot of people do. Do I have to reinstall all of them after upgrading to 11.3? Very good question.
Okay, short answer, no. Theoretically, everything should be compatible between 11.0 and 11.3, so all the components should be compatible. But long answer, maybe you need to reinstall some of them. I would personally check all those components and check their websites and see if they have released an updated version to 11.3, because obviously we cannot keep track of every single component out there. We do a lot of testing with the major components to see if they're compatible, but obviously we cannot keep track of all of them. And depending on how low level they go, based on their functionality, maybe there could be some hiccups during the upgrade. So my recommendation, it would be first, check if there has been any updates on those third-party components. And second, if you're on a virtual machine, create a snapshot, upgrade to 11.3, and if something breaks, you can always roll back to as you were before, and you can analyze what the problem was and try to fix it. And if you're not in a virtual machine and you have your RAD Studio installed in bare metal, create a good backup of the whole thing so you can roll back in case you're having any issues. But yeah, as I said, theoretically, all the libraries from 11.0 should be compatible with 11.3. But I cannot promise that every single component out there will be compatible.